Millionaire let Mistress evict his pregnant wife. From their home 10 years later, she walked into his boardroom. He never imagined the day he'd watch his pregnant wife carry a suitcase out of their dream home, tears streaming down her cheeks, while another woman stood triumphantly by his side. It was a decision fueled by lust, greed, and a promise of a dazzling future, a promise that soon turned into a haunting regret. A decade later, fate would come knocking at his boardroom door in the most unexpected way. In a moment brimming with tension, she appeared as a woman transformed, carrying not just the weight of the past, but the power to change the course of his life forever. Ronnie Fairchild was the epitome of the ambitious entrepreneur, suave in appearance, relentless in his drive, and always on the move. At 32, he seemed to have it all. He owned a sizable chunk of prime real estate in Boston and had his name associated with multiple successful ventures. He was a socialite who appeared in magazines and local news segments, extolling the virtues of hard work and innovation. Many who knew him personally, however, understood that his quest for success often led him to skirt the boundaries of integrity. Yet in business, results were all that truly mattered, and Ronnie continuously delivered. Marriage to Colette da Silva had seemed like a golden match. Colette was a kind-hearted, radiant woman who had grown up in East Cambridge. She was the daughter of Portuguese immigrants, a woman who had once juggled 2 part-time jobs to pay for community college. Working her way up, she eventually built a modest photography business known for capturing candid, emotional moments at weddings and special events. She had crossed paths with Ronnie at one such wedding, where he was acting as a groomsman for his cousin's nuptials. That night, under the glow of string lights and the hum of conversation, sparks flew between them. Ronnie and Colette married a year later. The wedding took place at the stately Boston Public Library courtyard, with close friends and family members celebrating a couple who looked like they might be unstoppable. Colette's father, Manuel, walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes. Ronnie wore a classic black tuxedo and the proud expression of a self-made man, certain that life would be glorious from that day onward. During the early years, everything about their life seemed perfect. They lived in a renovated brownstone in Beacon Hill, one of Boston's most historic neighborhoods. Surrounded by quiet cobbled streets and lined with gas-lit lamps, the house offered an air of timeless elegance. Within those walls, Colette and Ronnie laughed over late-night dinners and shared playful banter about their future children. They talked about names, debated how many children they'd have, and envisioned a home brimming with both love and success. However, as Ronnie's wealth grew, so did his ego. He began working longer hours, traveling frequently, and attending lavish business parties. Soon enough, his nights out became the norm, leaving Colette behind to wonder if their big dreams were morphing into illusions. She tried to be patient. Having grown up watching her parents hustle tirelessly to build a life, she understood the grind. But the warmth in their marriage waned as Ronnie became colder, calculating, and often dismissive of her concerns. Still, Colette persisted in her quiet, steadfast love. When she discovered she was pregnant, she thought that perhaps this could be the moment that rekindled their bond. She planned a special dinner, meticulously decorating the table with flowers, candles, and a soft glow of anticipation. The news of a child, however, landed in Ronnie's hands like a corporate memo, with no immediate importance. He offered a half-hearted hug and muttered something about it being inconvenient timing before stepping back into his office to take a call. Over the coming weeks, Colette's excitement tried to overshadow her growing doubts. She found comfort in confiding in her close friend, Daniel Brown, an old classmate who worked at Massachusetts General Hospital as a medical researcher. Daniel sensed Colette's anxiety and recommended she seek professional guidance. But Colette shrugged it off, thinking perhaps all couples hit bumps in their marriage, and it was only a matter of time before they found harmony again. Unbeknownst to Colette, something far more sinister was unfolding. Ronnie had met a striking woman named Sabrina Caldwell. Sabrina was once a receptionist at an upscale real estate agency, but she quickly climbed the ranks by leveraging her beauty and wit. When Ronnie first met her at a property showcase, her piercing green eyes and confident demeanor enthralled him. It was not love at first sight, but it was certainly lust and intoxication that blinded him to his marriage's fading vows. Sabrina, sensing a golden opportunity, realized Ronnie's affections could further her ambitious climb. Ronnie was intrigued by Sabrina's audacious charm. She was unapologetic about her desires for luxury and influence. Colette, on the other hand, seemed so ordinary to him now, so rooted in genuine care and authenticity, that he began to see her as a mere fixture in his life, an obligation he had once embraced, but now resented. In hushed corridors of his growing empire, Ronnie's affair with Sabrina began. Discreet text messages turned to stolen weekends. She would appear at company galas, introduced as a business associate, while Colette was often left at home. Rumors churned through circles. A few cautious friends tried to tip Colette off, but she dismissed them out of loyalty to Ronnie. She still believed he was merely busy expanding their future legacy. Then came the night that would change everything. In the midst of Sabrina's manipulative influence, Ronnie decided to confront Colette with an outrageous proposition. That proposition, well, it started as talk of taking a break in their marriage, but by the end of the conversation, it had escalated to an ultimatum. Colette would leave the house they'd both worked to build, at least for a while, so he could sort out his life. Broken, stunned, and pregnant, Colette pleaded for compromise. She spoke of her family's devotion, reminded him of the tiny human growing inside her. But Ronnie wouldn't be swayed. And as though orchestrated by some twisted fate, Sabrina stepped in, spouting lies that Colette was causing stress detrimental to the unborn child, and that Colette should leave for everyone's well-being. Colette had never felt more alone. With heartbreak coursing through her veins, she gathered her belongings into suitcases. She paused at the threshold of the front door, hoping for a last-minute change of heart from Ronnie, a plea for her to stay. But all she saw was Sabrina, triumphant, her slender frame leaning against the banister, smirking. Ronnie looked away, too cowardly to meet his wife's tear-filled eyes. Colette stepped onto the sidewalk, the suitcase thumping against her leg, symbolizing the abrupt eviction from her own life. The weight of betrayal pressed on her soul, so heavy, so final. Little did Ronnie realize that this single act of cruelty would shape his future in ways he could never have foreseen. Colette wandered the streets that evening in search of a safe place to stay. She contacted her longtime friend, Evelyn Parker, a high school teacher she had known since childhood. Evelyn drove straight into Beacon Hill, helped Colette load her suitcases into her trunk, and insisted she come to her apartment in Somerville. During the ride, Colette's hands trembled. She stared blankly at the passing streetlights, grappling with the reality that her husband had essentially replaced her with another woman while she was pregnant with his child. Evelyn's apartment was modest but cozy, filled with second-hand furniture and pictures of Evelyn's smiling students pinned to a bulletin board. Settling into the guest room, Colette was overwhelmed by the kindness of her friend, who provided endless cups of tea and a shoulder to cry on. That night, the tears would not stop. The emotional whiplash from being cast out by the man she trusted most in the world transformed her heartbreak into pure exhaustion. A doctor's visit was imminent. Colette needed to ensure her unborn child was safe after all this stress and upheaval. The following morning, Evelyn accompanied her to St. Elizabeth's Medical Center. There, a reassuring ultrasound showed that the baby's heartbeat was strong, and aside from Colette's obvious stress, the pregnancy seemed on track. Dr. Soren, a calm, middle-aged obstetrician, urged her to prioritize her emotional well-being. "Your child needs your strength," he advised. At first, Colette was unsure what to do next. Legally, she still had the right to the home she and Ronnie shared, but she couldn't face returning, not after the humiliation of being cast out, not with Sabrina's presence overshadowing what had once been her private sanctuary. She reached out to her parents, Manuel and Helena, who were still living in a simple, two-bedroom apartment in East Cambridge. It was a tearful reunion. Manuel, a retired machinist with calloused hands and a fiery protective streak, wanted to confront Ronnie immediately. Helena, a gentle soul, made Colette's favorite caldo verde soup. After hours of conversation, they agreed Colette needed time to think. She resolved to stay at Evelyn's for the short term, primarily to avoid the tension that might escalate if Ronnie tried to contact her. Days turned into weeks. The more Colette reflected on Ronnie's betrayal, the more determined she became not to let despair define her. She needed a way forward. She would fight for her child's future. If Ronnie didn't want to be a part of their lives, so be it. But she couldn't just vanish into sorrow. Colette decided to channel her energies into her photography work, though her business had slowed due to her emotional turmoil. One evening, while browsing old messages, she noticed a pending job request for a charity gala at the downtown Harvard Club. It was well paid and had come through a referral from a previous client. Summoning her courage, she accepted. With Evelyn's help, she pressed her dresses, charged her camera batteries, and headed out to the event, determined to demonstrate her resilience. As she captured candid shots of attendees, sipping cocktails and conversing, Colette felt alive again. The lens provided a certain detachment, a way to witness life's events without being sucked into them. Yet there were moments when her baby's gentle flutter reminded her of her new reality. She was no longer just a heartbroken wife. She was an expectant mother, forging a path alone. Still, questions plagued her. How could Ronnie be so callous? How did a man who had once spoken sweetly of building a family with her morph into someone who let a mistress evict his pregnant wife from their own home? At times, bitterness gnawed at Colette. She wanted answers, retribution, or at least an apology. But Ronnie had gone silent. No texts, no calls, no attempts to remedy the situation. Behind the scenes, Ronnie was indeed busy with Sabrina. The scandal of Colette's eviction had not yet broken into public view. Most of Ronnie's business associates either had no idea or turned a blind eye, unwilling to meddle in personal matters. Sabrina took full advantage of the situation, positioning herself as the new partner in Ronnie's life. They attended networking events where she boasted about philanthropic plans she claimed to share with Ronnie. No one truly questioned the sudden disappearance of Colette, as she had always been somewhat private. Ronnie, for his part, managed to compartmentalize his guilt, or so he thought. Every now and then, he would be haunted by the memory of Colette's tear-streaked face as she left the house. In the darkness of night, he might question his decisions. But the next day's flurry of business deals and Sabrina's manipulative charm drowned out any regrets. He told himself that Colette would be fine. After all, she was strong, resourceful. He deluded himself into thinking it was better this way, that he was providing a new, grander future for all involved. If only he could see the disaster unfolding. But Colette's unwavering hope was fueled by the life growing inside her. If ever there was a time to be strong, it was now. With her father's gruff encouragement, "You fight, Menina," and her mother's gentle support, along with Evelyn's unwavering friendship, Colette felt a spark of optimism. She promised herself she would not let Ronnie's betrayal dictate her child's future. She vowed to seize every opportunity to stand on her own feet, come what may. Thus began Colette's slow but steady ascent from the ashes of heartbreak. She did not realize it yet, but fate had begun weaving a story of resilience and renewal, one that would come full circle a decade later in a boardroom confrontation no one could have predicted. As Colette's pregnancy progressed, her small circle rallied to support her. Evelyn continued to host her, but the cramped space was beginning to take a toll on them both. Colette's parents, though living on a limited retirement income, insisted she move into their East Cambridge apartment, at least until she saved enough to find her own place. Recognizing that she needed breathing room, Colette agreed. The day she arrived, her mother had decorated the spare bedroom with pastel curtains and a small corner table lined with baby essentials. Despite this precarious living situation, Colette found solace in her work. Her photography gigs increased as word of mouth spread about the captivating, emotive style she brought to events. In the bustling city of Boston, there was always a fundraiser, wedding, or corporate event that needed coverage. Colette was determined to be the best, to make her name known, so that eventually she could open her own studio. Every time she pressed her shutter, she felt a sense of rebirth. Behind the camera, she was in control of the narrative, capturing fleeting moments of joy and significance. In her 6th month of pregnancy, Colette secured a contract to shoot photos for a prominent local organization, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, where a charity auction was to take place. Notably, a portion of the event's proceeds would benefit single mothers. The irony was not lost on her, and she took the assignment with renewed passion. On the night of the auction, Colette navigated the museum's gorgeous column-lined courtyard, snapping pictures of Bostonians dressed in their finery. Soft classical music drifted across the space. She caught glimpses of famed personalities like attorney Gloria Allred mingling with other guests. It struck Colette that the world of influence she once brushed shoulders with, as Ronnie's wife was now within her professional sphere, even if she was now an outsider looking in. While photographing the event, she bumped into an elegant older woman named Muriel Atwood, a philanthropist and longtime patron of the arts. Muriel, noticing Colette's baby bump, asked who she was and if she worked for a studio. Colette explained she was a freelance photographer building her own business. Impressed by the warmth and authenticity of Colette's demeanor, Muriel invited her to apply for a mentorship grant aimed at empowering women entrepreneurs in creative fields. Touched by the offer, Colette recognized the significance of this opportunity. If she could secure that grant, it might allow her to expand her photography business, or even open a small gallery to showcase her work and the work of other emerging artists. Encouraged, she meticulously assembled her portfolio in the weeks that followed, writing a heartfelt essay about her mission to capture the human experience through her lens, driven by the challenges she had faced. Throughout these months, however, Ronnie remained a ghost in Colette's life. No calls to check on her health or that of the baby, no messages of remorse. It was as though he had wiped her from his life entirely, yet that ghostly absence would soon materialize in a startling way. One late afternoon, while returning from a maternity checkup, Colette noticed a letter in her parents' mailbox. The envelope bore Ronnie's name. Inside was an official document referencing divorce proceedings. Her hands trembled as she read the sterile words that summarized the dismantling of a union. He wanted a swift, uncontested divorce. The terms included a minimal settlement, which was insulting given Ronnie's wealth. More disturbingly, he made no mention of parental rights or child support. It was as though the unborn child didn't exist. Fury and heartbreak collided. Colette was appalled by Ronnie's heartless approach. She wasn't seeking a massive payout. She wanted her child's well-being safeguarded. She needed him to, at the very least, acknowledge his responsibilities as a father. Driven by indignation, she contacted a lawyer, James Sullivan, recommended by a friend of Daniel Brown. Sullivan was a seasoned family law attorney who found Ronnie's behavior reprehensible. He agreed to represent Colette and ensure that her interests and, more importantly, her child's interests were not trampled upon. Legal proceedings began, weaving a layer of stress into Colette's life she hardly needed in her advanced pregnancy. Court dates were scheduled and rescheduled. Ronnie's attorneys tried to stonewall every attempt Colette made to secure fair terms. Sabrina's hand was evident in the behind-the-scenes maneuvering. But Colette, steadfast in her resolve, refused to back down, even as her due date approached. Just weeks before her expected delivery, Colette found a glimmer of hope. Her application to Muriel Atwood's mentorship grant had reached the final stages. If she succeeded, it could mean the difference between scraping by and establishing herself as a legitimate professional photographer. Every day, she hustled meeting with potential clients, editing photos into the early hours, ignoring the exhaustion that crept into her bones. She was motivated by the vision of standing on her own 2 feet, providing a secure future for her child, no matter how bleak Ronnie's support might be. Though battered by betrayal, Colette was forging a new identity. She was discovering that heartbreak could fuel reinvention, that a dream deferred was not a dream destroyed. Her journey to independence, however, was just beginning. On a misty October morning, Colette's water broke. She was rushed to Massachusetts General Hospital, where Daniel Brown happened to be working that day. While Daniel was not an obstetrician, he was a reassuring presence in the hospital corridors. Labor was long, grueling, and fraught with the tension of everything that had led her there. As she clutched her mother's hand, tears flowed freely, not just from the pain of contractions, but the emotional release of bringing life into a world so entangled with betrayal. At dawn the next day, she gave birth to a baby girl, whom she named Sophia Helena Fairchild, honoring her own mother while keeping Ronnie's surname. Despite everything, Colette wanted her daughter to know her father's lineage, even if he remained absent. The moment Sophia cried for the first time, Colette felt a tidal wave of love wash over her, erasing, if only momentarily, the scars of abandonment. In that hospital room, life narrowed to a single focal point, the tiny human in her arms. When word reached Ronnie that Colette had delivered, he sent a terse text, "Hope all went well. Will have my attorney contact you." Not even a name inquiry, no flowers, no visit. The cruelty was staggering, yet Colette's anger dissolved into a fierce, protective love for her daughter. She resolved to shield Sophia from the man who had turned his back on them, even if that meant cutting all ties. And so she quietly prepared for life as a single mother. The following weeks were a blur of midnight feedings, diaper changes, and tears, some from Sophia, some from Colette. Her parents helped, but they were elderly, and the burden was immense. Evelyn would drop by with groceries and baby supplies, providing laughter and much-needed breaks. From the outside, it was far from the life Colette once thought. She'd have glamorous dinner parties with Ronnie, baby showers at fancy venues, but it was real, honest, and profoundly love-driven. News arrived at just the right time. Colette won the mentorship grant. A small ceremony was held at a local women's business center in Boston to introduce the grant winners. Still healing from childbirth, Colette mustered the courage to attend with Sophia strapped into a baby carrier. She met Muriel Atwood in person, an elegant woman with a commanding presence and kind eyes. Muriel praised Colette's portfolio, praising how her images transcended mere documentation and revealed the raw emotions of each event. The grant came with seed money and a year of professional mentorship, which included networking support, branding advice, and even help in finding studio space at a discounted rate. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Colette felt something inside her shift. She was no longer the discarded wife, the victim of Ronnie's callousness. She was a new mother, an entrepreneur with promise, and someone determined to succeed. Over the following months, Colette worked tirelessly to set up a small photography studio near Inman Square in Cambridge. Balancing late-night feedings and early morning client meetings, she learned the delicate dance of single parenthood. Little Sophia became a fixture at the studio, where a corner was set up with a bassinet and play mat. Clients found the entire arrangement endearing, a testament to Colette's commitment and resourcefulness. Meanwhile, Ronnie's divorce proceedings slogged on. Their lawyers exchanged barbs, threatened subpoenas, and negotiated partial settlements. Colette requested only what she felt was just for Sophia's upbringing. Still, Sabrina and Ronnie's legal team resisted. Letters arrived monthly, offering meager child support. Colette persevered, trusting James Sullivan's expertise to fight on her behalf. Despite these battles, Colette's personal and professional life blossomed. She began booking larger events, corporate seminars, upscale weddings, even local political fundraisers. She discovered that vulnerability was also her strength. People gravitated to her story of resilience, and her photographs reflected a deep empathy for the subjects she captured. One late evening, as Colette was reviewing wedding photos at her makeshift desk in the studio, her phone buzzed. It was a message from a local publication, Boston Visionary. They wanted to feature her in an article about women who had overcome adversity to become successful entrepreneurs. Stunned, Colette sat back in her chair, memories flooding in. Less than a year ago, she was a scorned wife, evicted from her own home. Now, she was forging a reputation as a talented photographer. She said yes to the interview. The journalist who spoke to her, a young writer named Alexis Reed, was captivated by Colette's quiet determination. Alexis's piece focused on Colette's passion for capturing human connections, her dedication to her daughter, and how she balanced the demands of new motherhood with the rigors of running a small business. When the article finally ran, it brought a wave of attention. New clients emailed, former clients reached out with congratulations, even a few local celebrities took note. As Colette's studio thrived, her heart felt both guarded and open. She found herself wanting to share this joy with someone who might understand her scars, but also see her triumph. It was a subtle longing that surfaced during quiet moments. Though she wasn't ready to date or trust romantically again, the wound Ronnie inflicted remained fresh. Still, she was learning that joy could coexist with pain, that love could be reborn in new forms. Such was the unexpected miracle that arrived in Colette's life. Heartbreak had not destroyed her. Instead, it had unleashed her strength, and though Ronnie tried to bury her under the rubble of his ambition, she emerged, determined to build a future no betrayal could tear down. 10 years passed in a whirlwind of transformation. After lengthy and difficult court battles, Ronnie was compelled to provide a fair child support arrangement for Sophia. But in practice, he remained largely uninvolved in her life, never reaching out, never sending birthday wishes. Colette learned to expect nothing from him, and that expectation freed her to focus on her daughter and her burgeoning career. Sophia grew into a vibrant, curious child with her mother's expressive eyes and a love for art that seemed to come from both parents. Colette's photography side, and perhaps some hidden creative trait in Ronnie. By the time Sophia was 9, she had become Colette's occasional photography assistant, carrying small tripods or offering comedic relief to clients during shoots. Meanwhile, Colette's reputation soared. She photographed events for local politicians, celebrities, and once, even for a documentary film screening that Oprah Winfrey attended at the Wang Theatre. In time, she expanded her services to commercial campaigns, employing a small but talented team of creatives. Professionally, Colette transformed from a struggling single mother to the CEO of a thriving creative agency, Lighthouse Frames, which specialized in photography, videography, and even brand consulting. She operated out of a sleek office in Boston's Innovation District, a testament to her decade-long climb from heartbreak to independence. Within these 10 years, she navigated relationships too, some fleeting, some that taught her about love's capacity to heal. Yet she chose never to marry, uncertain if she wanted to entangle herself in legal bonds again. In time, she found a partner who respected her boundaries, a gentle-natured man named Mark Ambrose, who worked in technology. But Colette took things slowly, prioritizing Sophia and her career over any rush to a new commitment. If her journey had taught her anything, it was that trust had to be earned over time. Sophia had her own questions. She knew of her father only through stories and court documents. There were days she'd ask, "Why doesn't Dad call? Or does he not love me?" Colette would respond truthfully but gently, explaining that sometimes adults let selfishness cloud what truly matters, but it had nothing to do with Sophia's worth. Colette wanted her daughter's heart to remain open, unscarred by the bitterness that once consumed her mother's life. As the 10th anniversary of Sophia's birth approached, Colette focused on a major new opportunity, a partnership with a global venture capital firm called Horizon Investments. They were opening a branch in Boston and needed a creative agency to handle their branding, event photography, and social media campaigns. If Lighthouse Frames secured the contract, it would be the largest business deal in Colette's career, worth millions and promising international exposure. The initial talks were promising. Colette was invited to pitch her agency's capabilities in front of Horizon's Boston board. If they approved, she'd handle a prestigious, high-budget promotional campaign. Excitement mingled with nerves as Colette prepared her team. She couldn't afford any missteps. In a twist of fate, the meeting date clashed with Sophia's 10th birthday. But Sophia, wise beyond her years, encouraged her mother to go for it. "We'll just celebrate later," she said, flashing that bright smile Colette adored. Colette promised she wouldn't be long, that the pitch was simply a formality, a chance to demonstrate their capabilities. After all, the preliminary calls indicated Horizon's executives were practically sold on Lighthouse Frames. What Colette didn't know, what no one could have guessed, was that Ronnie Fairchild had recently become involved with Horizon Investments. Over the past decade, Sabrina's manipulations had run their course, and she eventually left Ronnie when a more lucrative opportunity came knocking. But Ronnie continued to build his real estate empire and had begun funneling some of his wealth into venture capital. As he connected with investors, Horizon Investments recognized Ronnie's flair for identifying undervalued properties and his knack for business expansions. They invited him onto the Boston Advisory Board, a seat that would place him squarely in the room when Colette arrived to make her pitch. The day dawned crisp and clear. Colette dressed meticulously, opting for a tailored navy suit that embodied professionalism and understated elegance. Her staff, 2 photographers, a graphic designer, and a videographer met her at their office before heading to Horizon's downtown skyscraper. A sense of optimism coursed through them as they loaded their portfolio, slideshows, and marketing materials onto laptops and USB drives. Standing outside the polished glass doors on the 40th floor, Colette inhaled, steadying her nerves. The receptionist led them into a spacious boardroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Charles River. One by one, Horizon's board members trickled in, men and women, sporting sharp suits, greeting Colette's team with polite smiles. Finally, the double doors swung open, and in walked a man Colette never expected to see again in a professional capacity, Ronnie Fairchild. His hair had more grey now. His face carried the weight of years, perhaps regrets. For a moment, Colette felt her world tilt, memories cascading her eviction, her tears, and the image of Sabrina's triumphant face. She stiffened, her breath caught in her throat. Ronnie's eyes locked onto hers, shock registered, followed by what might have been a fleeting flicker of shame. Silence engulfed the room. A few board members exchanged puzzled glances, sensing the sudden tension but unsure of its source. The final arrival, Horizon's managing director, broke the silence with an introduction and invited everyone to be seated. Colette's mind raced. Could she proceed professionally, ignoring the storm brewing inside? Could she deliver her pitch with the man who had once destroyed her life sitting directly across from her? She glanced at her employees, who were busy setting up equipment, unaware of the emotional landmine that had just detonated. The managing director welcomed Colette, praising Lighthouse Frames' portfolio. He handed the floor over to her. With every ounce of composure, she stood, her hands trembling slightly as she opened the presentation. She reminded herself that she was no longer the timid, dependent woman Ronnie had cast aside. She was an accomplished entrepreneur, a mother, and a fighter. As Colette spoke, Ronnie watched intently, expression inscrutable. The slides displayed images of her past triumphs, mesmerizing event photographs, brand campaigns that soared, and heartwarming wedding shots. Colette spoke with clarity, detailing how Lighthouse Frames would elevate Horizon Investments' brand and public presence. Her words flowed, each carefully chosen, each dripping with confidence. Yet she could feel Ronnie's gaze pressing into her. Moments from their past bubbled up in her mind like quicksand threatening to drag her under. She recalled the humiliating sight of a suitcase in her hand, tears streaming down her face. But then she remembered all she had gained. She remembered Sophia, her parents, Evelyn's kindness, and how she built a new life. The memory fortified her resolve. When she concluded her presentation, a few board members erupted into applause. The managing director commended her thoroughness. One asked about budget estimates and timelines. Another inquired about the international scope of Lighthouse Frames. Colette fielded each question with poise. She could sense the high likelihood of success until Ronnie cleared his throat. "So, Colette," he began, his voice lower than she remembered, "you mentioned capturing personal narratives. Could you tell us how you handle sensitive stories, especially those that might tarnish a brand's image if mishandled?" It was a pointed question. Ronnie was testing her. Maybe it was a dig at their personal history, or maybe he was curious about her integrity. Regardless, Colette refused to let her composure slip. She answered succinctly, explaining her agency's tact, confidentiality, and respectful approach to clients' reputations. Ronnie nodded, his gaze shifting to the table, as if acknowledging something unspoken between them. The meeting ended on a promising note, with the board members thanking Colette and her team for a brilliant pitch. They promised a decision soon. Everyone shook hands. When it was Ronnie's turn, he clasped Colette's hand. She felt the coldness of his palm, along with a hint of tremor. Outside, Colette's team was abuzz with excitement, certain they'd landed a monumental deal. But Colette lingered, drawn by a need for closure. She asked her team to go ahead, telling them she wanted to finalize some details with the managing director. Once they departed, she slipped back into the hallway near the boardroom. She found Ronnie standing by a large window overlooking the city. The tension between them was suffocating, so much unsaid, so many wounds left to fester. She approached cautiously, uncertain of how he would react. He turned. For a moment, there was a glimpse of vulnerability in his eyes. "Colette, I had no idea you were, that I was who?" she interjected, bitterness creeping into her tone. "Capable, successful, still alive after you tried to bury me?" He winced. "I never meant to," she raised a hand. "Let's not pretend this is a simple misunderstanding. You threw me out of our home when I was pregnant, Ronnie. You never asked about Sophia. You never wanted to see her. You just walked away." His features contorted, a complex swirl of guilt and defensiveness. "I believed. Sabrina convinced me it was best. I was so caught up in everything, money, deals, illusions. By the time I came to my senses, too much damage had been done. I thought you were better off without me, he exhaled heavily. Look, I can't change the past. But I'm sorry, Colette. I truly am. A rush of conflicting emotions tore through her: anger, sadness, relief, even empathy. She fought back tears, unwilling to let him see her crumble. Sophia is 10 now. She's talented, bright, and deserves more than a father's apology delivered 10 years late. Ronnie averted his gaze. If you can find it in your heart to let me see her, I'd be grateful. His words, surprisingly earnest, momentarily softened her anger, yet she remained guarded. I don't know if that's even possible. I won't expose my daughter to a father who could vanish again at any hint of inconvenience. She's not a hobby. She's a child with real feelings. Ronnie nodded, regret hanging over him like a storm cloud. I understand. Just please think about it. I'd like to support her, be involved somehow. Colette felt the weight of the moment, years of pain and longing swirling within her. I have to go, she murmured, turning to leave. As she walked away, she heard Ronnie call her name, but she refused to look back. The elevator door shut, and she was plunged into the reality of the aftermath. Could she open the door for Ronnie to be in Sophia's life, or was that too great a risk? Her heart pounded. She'd always fantasized about the day Ronnie might realize what he had lost, but fantasies rarely prepared one for the real, messy confrontation, and in that tension lay the seeds of the story's next great twist. Over the next few weeks, Colette grappled with the collision of past and present. True to their word, Horizon Investments offered Lighthouse Frames the contract. The board, enamored by Colette's presentation, had chosen her agency to spearhead a massive rebranding campaign. Only a few details remained to be ironed out, among them Ronnie's role in overseeing the Boston branch's marketing decisions. It meant that if Colette accepted the contract, she would have to work with him at least periodically. Her staff rejoiced. This was the break they'd been longing for, the contract that would catapult Lighthouse Frames to global recognition. Even Mark Ambrose, Colette's quiet and supportive partner, urged her to take the leap, but Mark also sensed her internal torment over Ronnie's sudden reappearance. Gently, he asked if she was prepared to face her ex-husband on a professional level. Could she set aside the pain for the sake of business? Colette weighed her options. She had built her entire life on resilience and the refusal to be defined by Ronnie's betrayal. Turning down this opportunity might feel like running away. Yet, working with him opened old wounds. She feared it might also complicate the tenuous path she and Sophia were on, especially if Ronnie insisted on forging a relationship with the daughter he had neglected. In the end, Colette made a decision. She would not let Ronnie's presence stop her from advancing her business. She had endured worse. She would proceed, but on her terms. She requested a formal meeting to finalize the contract, ensuring that any collaboration with Ronnie would remain strictly professional. That meeting took place in a posh conference room inside Horizon's offices. Ronnie was there, flanked by 2 other board members. Colette came with James Sullivan, her lawyer. They reviewed the contract line by line, discussing budgets, timelines, creative rights, and usage clauses. Ronnie rarely spoke, though he watched Colette with an air of respect and perhaps regret. Once the official details were settled, the board members excused themselves, leaving Colette and Ronnie alone. An awkward silence stretched between them until Ronnie finally spoke. It's a great opportunity for both of us, she nodded tersely. Yes, he leaned forward, elbows on the table. About Sophia, I want to meet her. I'd like to start making amends, if that's even possible. Anxiety coiled in Colette's stomach. She had spent 10 years shielding Sophia from disappointment, determined her daughter not suffer the heartbreak Ronnie once inflicted on Colette. But something in his voice sounded genuine, even if it was late, so terribly late. "I'll think about it," she said at last, her voice clipped. "But I need to see real effort from you, Ronnie. Actions, not just words." He exhaled in relief, a flicker of gratitude crossing his features. "Thank you." With that, Colette left, the new contract secured. Outside the high rise, she paused, letting the city's bustle wash over her. The next chapter of her life of lighthouse frames was about to begin. Whether it brought peace or turmoil, she wasn't certain. But she had faced the ghost of her past and emerged unbroken, more determined than ever to direct the narrative of her own life. Collaboration with Horizon Investments commenced swiftly. Colette's team got to work conceptualizing photo shoots, crafting branding guides, and planning social media campaigns that showcased Horizon's forward-thinking ethos. Ronnie attended some of the planning sessions, usually keeping a respectful distance. He never overstepped, never tried to undermine Colette's authority. On occasion, she caught him watching her with an expression that suggested remorse mixed with admiration. Sophia remained unaware that her father lurked just behind the scenes, fueling her mother's biggest professional deal to date. Colette wrestled with the ethics of introducing them. She sought advice from Mark, from Evelyn, even from Daniel Brown. Opinions varied. Mark thought Sophia deserved the chance to know her father, if only to resolve that lingering question in her heart. Evelyn warned Colette to proceed carefully, reminding her of how deeply Ronnie had wounded her. Daniel, ever practical, suggested therapy, a professional mediator who could guide them. Eventually, Colette scheduled a private therapy session with Dr. Susan Jacobs, a renowned family counselor recommended by a colleague. She explained the complicated history, the betrayal, and the sudden reappearance of Ronnie. Dr. Jacobs listened intently, then offered insight. Children often internalize a parent's absence. Meeting Ronnie might bring closure, or it could open wounds. The key is to proceed with honesty and boundaries. With professional guidance, Colette decided to invite Ronnie to a controlled meeting with Sophia. She set the venue at a neutral location, a quiet park in Newton, near the Charles River. The idea was for them to stroll, talk, and test the waters. Anxiety rippled through Colette in the days leading up to that moment. Would Ronnie revert to his old, self-serving ways? Would he let her daughter down again? On a chilly Saturday afternoon, Colette arrived at the park with Sophia. The girl, full of vibrant energy, skipped ahead, occasionally pausing to look at the ducks swimming in the river. Ronnie waited by a bench, his posture stiff, a bouquet of flowers in one hand, a teddy bear in the other. When Colette introduced him as her father, Sophia stared, wide-eyed. "You're my dad?" she asked, voice quivering. Ronnie nodded, clearing his throat. "Yes, I'm sorry I haven't been around, but I'd really like to get to know you, if you'll let me." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes, but she kept her composure. "Why didn't you come before?" she asked, the tremble in her tone revealing years of unasked questions. Ronnie's face fell. "I made mistakes, Sophia, horrible mistakes, but I want to try to make it right." Colette stood back, letting them speak. The conversation was tentative, filled with the awkwardness of a stranger claiming the title of father. But to Colette's surprise, Sophia's curiosity won out. She asked about Ronnie's life, about what he did for work, and whether they shared any interests. Ronnie listened intently, answered gently, and tried to learn about her hobbies: painting, soccer, a fascination with astronomy. They spent an hour talking, walking by the water. Ronnie gifted Sophia the teddy bear, which she clutched uncertainly, unsure if she should accept a token from a man she hardly knew. But as the afternoon waned, she seemed to relax in his presence. Colette observed quietly, emotions churning. This was the father of her child, a man who had once stood by while she was cast out, pregnant and terrified. Watching him attempt to connect with Sophia now felt surreal. When the meeting ended, Ronnie asked if they could do it again soon, perhaps dinner or a short outing. Sophia looked to her mother, uncertain, and Colette paused. "One step at a time," she replied. "We'll talk about it." That night, Colette tucked Sophia into bed, reading her a story about a brave princess who overcame treacherous trials. After the last page, Sophia asked, "Do you think Daddy's changed?" Colette hesitated. "I hope so," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair from Sophia's face. "Only time will show us." For the first time, the idea of redemption took root in Colette's mind. Could someone as damaged by ambition and betrayal as Ronnie truly reform? She wasn't sure, but she would let him try on her terms. Perhaps forgiveness was not a single act, but a process. Whether it ended with healing or more heartbreak remained to be seen. Months passed, and the marketing campaign with Horizon Investments thrived. Lighthouse Frames produced a series of visually stunning advertisements that garnered attention from financial magazines and media outlets. Colette's leadership shone. She orchestrated shoots at iconic Boston landmarks, leveraging the city's rich history to underscore Horizon's image of stability and innovation. The board, including Ronnie, was thrilled with the results. Meanwhile, Ronnie continued to see Sophia sporadically short lunches, a trip to the aquarium, sometimes with Colette tagging along for supervision. He seemed determined to prove he could be present, though he often asked for forgiveness too directly. Sophia remained guarded, but she allowed him into her life, piece by piece. When the campaign's final phase approached, Horizon scheduled a major press conference and celebration at their Boston headquarters, an event to unveil the official branding and highlight the partnership with Lighthouse Frames. The press conference was set in the same boardroom where Colette had first seen Ronnie after 10 years. On the day of the event, the boardroom was transformed. Banners displayed the sleek new Horizon logo, courtesy of Colette's creative team. A dais with a microphone stood at the center, flanked by cameras. Local media outlets and influential figures in Boston's business community gathered, eager to witness the synergy between a renowned investment firm and a once underdog creative agency. Colette arrived in a tailored white suit that radiated confidence. Her staff bustled around her, finalizing technical setups. Ronnie approached, offering a polite nod. "Big day," he said, forcing a small smile. She returned the nod. "Yes, it is." The managing director of Horizon introduced the event, praising Colette's innovative vision, highlighting how her personal story of perseverance paralleled the spirit of entrepreneurship that Horizon championed. Then he invited Colette to speak. Stepping up to the microphone, she surveyed the crowd. Cameras flashed. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice resonating in the space. This project was not just about a rebrand, it was about forging a new narrative. Horizon has always championed forward thinking, and in many ways, I see a reflection of my journey in their mission. She paused, heart pounding as memories swirled her younger self with a suitcase, tears in her eyes. 10 years ago, I was at my lowest, evicted from my own home and unsure of the future. But with the support of friends, family, and my own determination, I built Lighthouse Frames. Today, we stand here unveiling a collaboration that speaks to resilience and reinvention. Applause thundered through the room. Ronnie watched from the sidelines, his eyes glistening with what looked like pride and regret. Colette concluded, "I hope this campaign inspires more than just investors. I hope it reminds anyone who has faced personal or professional hurdles that it's never too late to rise, to rebuild, and to thrive. Thank you." Afterward, the floor opened for questions. A journalist directed one to Colette. "Your story resonates with so many single mothers and struggling entrepreneurs. What final message would you give them?" She smiled, glancing briefly at Ronnie. "That your past does not define your future. Never underestimate your own strength, and no matter the obstacles, Keep your heart open to possibilities, including the possibility of forgiveness. Cheers erupted. The event ended on a high note, with celebratory chatter and networking. Colette stood by a large window, much like Ronnie had on that fateful day. She watched the cityscape with a calm smile. The decade of struggle, heartbreak and triumph had come full circle. As she turned, she spotted Ronnie approaching, a complicated expression on his face. "That was incredible," he managed. "I'm happy for you, Colette." "Thank you," she said, her tone measured. He cleared his throat, looking as though he had more to say. I'm sorry for everything. I know words aren't enough, but I wanted you to know." Colette regarded him for a moment, recalling the storms she had braved. "I appreciate that, Ronnie. Truly." He nodded, seeming content with even that small measure of acceptance. Colette walked away, her steps light, her heart unburdened. She had reclaimed her power, secured her future, and found a path to healing, if not total closure. And that was enough. The story of Colette and Ronnie is a testament to human resilience. Colette was once a pregnant wife cast aside, forced to rebuild her life from the fragments of betrayal. Yet she harnessed that pain, nurturing her daughter, honing her craft, and forging an empire that would astound the very man who underestimated her. When Colette walked into that boardroom after a decade of sweat and sacrifice, she was no longer the victim, she was the visionary. If her journey teaches us anything, it's that a broken past doesn't have to define your future. You can stand stronger than ever, crowned by the achievements others once claimed you'd never reach. If you enjoyed this unfolding drama of heartbreak, resilience, and eventual triumph, don't forget to show your support, like the video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Your journey matters too.